Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's CAB workshop, all about CAB member recruitment. We're going to officially kick it off 2 minutes after the hour to allow time for people to join. Welcome, everyone. We're starting at 2 minutes after the hour. Hi, and welcome to everyone. We're going to kick it off in another minute. Hello, we're going to get started in another, I think, 30 seconds. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's CAB workshop, all about CAB recruitment strategies. So we're recording the webinar and we'll send it to everyone afterward. If you have questions, please type them in the Q&A box. We're going to answer them along the way and at the end, time permitting. So today, my colleague Kelly, we're going to do introductions. She's going to talk about managing the recruitment phase, and then board member ranking and ongoing recruitment. And then we'll do Q&A and some CAB resources at the end. So please say hi and introduce yourself, Kelly.
Great. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here today. Sunny day here in Boston. I think we've hit 70, so nice spring day, and excited to be talking about the recruitment process. Thanks, Tatiana.
Awesome, Kelly. So really quick about Ignite, we're the only global firm dedicated only to customer advisory boards and partner advisory boards. We've completed over 300 advisory board engagements, and leading B2B companies use many of the best practices that we've developed for managing CABs. So we have a full suite of CAB solutions. We can help you create a board and manage it. We can also assess and optimize your existing boards. And you can hire a facilitator to facilitate in-person or virtual CAB meetings. So we're going to do a quick poll here. So what are your top recruitment challenges? You should see it on your screen. You can select as many as possible. So, identifying the right members. We don't have relationships with the right level of CAB member. The sales team, they're too eager. They want everyone to be on the CAB, or they're just not very helpful. And then knowing if the CAB member nominee will be outspoken, recruiting the most strategic level of CAB members, and then offboarding or rotating off CAB members. And then if you have some other challenge there, you can select other. And I'll give it another 5 seconds or so. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Do you see the results, Kelly?
I do. Wow, it's very fun. There are some neck and neck. I think identifying the right target CAB member nominees looks like about up there, but the top one was recruiting those most strategic and executive level, really getting to that C level. So great insights.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, everyone. So now we're going to go on to managing the recruitment phase, and I'll hand it over to you, Kelly.
Okay. Thanks, Tatiana. Let me make sure I can advance here the slides.
Let me just turn off my video really quick.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead.
perfect. I think I advanced that. I think we're in good shape. So yes, we're talking about managing the recruitment phase. So I think the clicking's a little slow. Bear with me for a second. Okay. So just as an overview, so the recruitment process really is 4 phases. We have the identify, invite, onboard, and engage. And today what we're going to focus on is really the first 3. So identifying your ideal member profile. We'll talk about how you gather nominees, customers, and then prioritize those nominees. What the invite process looks like, what are some of the materials, what are some of the steps involved in inviting your customers to be part of your customer advisory board. And then we'll dive into a little bit of the onboarding process as well. Engage, there's some little preview, some slides in here for a preview for our next webinar. So let's dive into the identify stage here. So really talking about identifying and prioritizing these customers. So your member nominees, I tend to use the word customer because these are your customers you're inviting to be part of your advisory board. So thinking about the numbers, I think it's really important to start at the numbers. If you look at, I'm going to start over to the right here. So 12 to 15 CAB members. So, you know, Ignite believes the best practice, industry best practice is 12 to 15 people as part of your in-person, your virtual meeting. So you're thinking about gathering your top customers in person. I know we do a lot of virtual meetings now, but 12 to 15 is that ideal number. Going more than that, you're going to lose that intimacy. You're going to really not be able to have that engagement level that you're looking for in terms of people being really able to connect. Thinking about your customer advisory board as a program and not a point in time event, you're really looking at the middle numbers here. You want to have 15 to 18 members on the roster. So how do you get to that 15 to 18 members? You're going to start with 30 member nominees. You're going to, and I'm going to talk about that. You're going to build a rolling list. So you're going to build a list of these top customers to get to that number 30. But I think it's really important, and I think sometimes it can be challenging to keep to that 12 to 15. Everyone gets excited about the CAB board meeting. They want to bring in more people. It's just very critical that you keep to those numbers if you're looking to have this successful, intimate advisory experience. Let's see. So thinking about who you'll target. So what are you, who are you targeting to build success? Start to think about which, types of customers, their level. I like to say the altitude of the customers, are they at that sea level? Are they one click down? Are they, who are these people? Thinking also about how you're going to recruit them, bringing in your ecosystem partners, folks in sales, customer success, how you're going to actually ask these members to be part of your CAB. Thinking a little bit, are these new customers? Are they established relationships? Having a mix, what that might look like. And then the chart here just sort of illustrates the actual time frame. So we'll talk a little bit more about your wave A and your wave B, but really your wave A is going to be your top list of customers that are going to fit the criteria in your ideal member profile. Wave B is kind of your second list here, and we'll talk more about it, but wave B is really your second list that you might need to get into, but you want to make sure you've really gone through that wave A and make sure, because the worst thing you ever want to do is invite someone because you can't disinvite them. And then and it shows the timeline here. This takes a while. This recruitment process is a thoughtful, intentional process where you're really working internally with your different partners in sales and customer success to come up with that list, rank it, prioritize it, who needs to be there. And then the third month, really part of that onboarding is really woven in with the content development and some of that pre-work. So just wanted to show this does take a while to do it right and to do it well. And I think we're seeing some questions, and Tatiana is going to help me out with some of the questions here.
Oh, yeah, we're good. I I typed the answers.
Oh, good. Super. Thank you. So thinking about the member selection process, I think thinking through some of these questions and really who are these customers that you want to be part of this? I mean, the first one here on the left, what's their annual spend with you? What's their future revenue potential? I mean, I think that's really important to consider. How familiar are these customers with your products and services? If you're running more of a product-based board where you're really looking for input on product strategy and roadmap, you want some high familiarity with your products and services. You also want to think about things, are these customers potential advocates for you? Are they champions? What is their relationship with you? I think over on the right, if you look at some of the bullets here, these are more about the individual themselves. So is this person very invested in their personal brand? Do they belong to other network organizations, associations? Are they publishing thought leadership like white papers or perspectives? I find we all use LinkedIn very much, and that's a great resource to just take a look at who these folks are. The last two are more about just kind of their personality, if you will. So are these folks, are they outspoken? Are they going to be able to hold their own and be able to contribute to the group? Are they thought leaders and open to new ideas and really engaging in the discussion with you about your industry and about what's around the corner? This here is just an illustration. I think when you think about the composition of your customer advisory board, making sure that you have representation from different industries. So in this example, it shows you're not just fully weighted in financial services. You have members that are hailing from, the education sector, healthcare, retail. In this case, they have some openings for software and tech, but this is just a nice way to see who makes up your membership, because you want to have different perspectives bringing to the table. All right, this is the good part here. So starting with that ideal member profile, and I would, advise spending a lot of time here. You want to really make sure that you're coming up with that ideal candidate, ensuring a mix. This is your, I won't say North Star, but your member profile. You need to stay true to that. So once you've done the hard work of creating that member profile, this will be your best friend. So when your sales partner comes to you and says, hey, I want to invite this person, they're great, and you look against the member profile and they're not at that right level, they're not at that right altitude, or they have no familiarity with your products, or maybe they're in a region that they're the only person in that region. So you want to use your member profile as that guide. And if you think about when you do bring these customers together, that notion of birds of a feather, they want to talk to their other peers. They want to be at that same level. And that's what drives maximum engagement. So, and definitely think about making room for some of those high growth members, or some of those customers that are really doing some interesting things that are going to take that conversation to that next level. So here's an example of a member profile, and this is great. Just illustrates in terms of who they might be. So a CISO at a Fortune 500 company, decision maker. They're really strategic thinkers. They're recognized as thought leaders in their own company, recognized as thought leaders in their industry. Talk about they want the membership commitment, so that'll be part of your charter and what you're sharing with the members. We expect you to participate for in this case 2 years. We'll have an annual in-person meeting, 3 virtual meetings. A little bit about some of the regions, so where are these folks coming from, and we could have a whole discussion on this. But if you're a technology company in North America, you really want to, Ignite firmly believes, have that as a US or North America based board, have some success there, and then maybe you roll out another CAB in EMEA or other areas. You can definitely have some of those global members, as it says here, one non-US headquartered company. A good example is if you're running a CAB in North America, it's going to be in Boston. You might have a London client that's very active and would travel and would be able to participate. So something to consider. And then looking across the different industries, you want to have that balanced mix, representative of your customer base. So where are you going to get, where are we going to start building this nomination list? So you're going to gather input from across the organization. So typically working within a steering committee or your stakeholders, where you'll have representation from the executive sponsor of your CAB, which tends to often be the CEO or the CMO. You want to really gather input from sales, account management, customer success. I mean, you're thinking about the people in your organization that are really close to your customers. We would recommend using a nomination form to start to really capture who these folks are. Sharing the ideal member profile. So once you've locked down what that ideal member profile is, it's about sharing that and socializing it. The one thing, in Tatiana, we could have put this in orange, but the challenge here in the nomination process is making sure that your sales team is not going out and inviting people. This is about them telling you who should be on the list. I think it's pretty common. Sometimes sales might get excited. They can't wait to invite these folks, but you really want to make sure that it's about, we're nominating them, and that the CAB manager needs to approve this and the team needs to approve who's on that list. Because you'll see the last piece here is you're going to force rank and kind of put them in these wave A and wave B, prioritize them. I think that makes sense. I don't see any, Tatiana, any questions. I can stop. I'm probably talking pretty fast.
Oh, no questions yet. So if anyone has questions, type it in the Q&A box.
Super. Thank you. All right. So now you're ready to invite these customers to be part of your customer advisory board. So what does this look like? So we start with the recruiter. So the recruiter, it's funny, it's one of those words that means a lot of different things in different contexts, but the recruiter is the highest ranking executive contact. It's really the person in your organization who knows the customer the best. So this could be your CEO who knows these top customers, and that would be your recruiter in that case. Very often it's someone in the sales organization, customer success. It could be your head of marketing, but we're going to call them the recruiter. So they're going to need to be apprised of the process. So you'll do a CAB overview with these key stakeholders, with the recruiters, share the member profile, and then talk a lot about those numbers. As I share, the numbers matter. You want to make sure that you're driving to that 12 to 15 for the in-person and virtual meetings, and then maximum 18 on your entire roster, and then the 30 of the nomination list. So the process really looks like this. It starts with a verbal conversation. So you're going to ask that recruiter, let's say it's your CEO, to make a phone call to that customer. We really recommend it's a phone call, more personal than an email, to really talk about the program as a valued customer. We're excited to invite you to could be your inaugural CAB meeting. And then the follow-up includes, and I'll show some of the materials, but then it's a formal letter. You're invited to be part of the customer advisory board, and we recommend that comes from the executive sponsor to really give it that gravitas and weight. You'll include the charter, so that's your really the formal outline of the program. So if you think about a customer getting this formal invitation, they'll get the charter so they can take a look at, okay, what is this program all about? What would I potentially be signing up for? Then it's very important to have the CAB program manager, is that person that's really going to be the one following up with these customers. Do you have any questions? They're the ones that are going to be managing. Do we still need to chase down a few of these invitations that have gone out that we haven't heard from, and really monitoring to that timeline and the deadlines. So it's a pretty rigorous process, but I think following these steps will ensure some success with this. So some of the materials.
There is a question.
Oh, sure.
So someone wrote, how can we invite high-level executives that are competitive in their industries? Should we segment meetings so that competitors are not in the same room together?
The competitive ones is always an interesting question. I actually, in my background, I was I have certainly run meetings where you had competitors in the room, and I think I'll answer from the facilitation technique, making sure that there is that comfort level, following the Chatham House rules, that it's about, anything that's shared cannot be attributed to certain companies. You can take the ideas back, but not the specifics. I think that I hate saying it depends, but it also could depend on, if you do need to have both of those customers there and their competitors, it's going to involve a lot more careful consideration and maybe some pre-work beforehand. I think it's important the other members know who is there. So you might have someone opt out if they're not comfortable with having a competitor there. But I think really the key there would be around communication. If that answers, it depends.
Oh, yeah.
In certain cases. Yeah. It's a tricky
Yeah,
one. It can be
definitely.
really, but I think my other point of view here is I feel like there's a lot of co-opetition and competitors you didn't even think were competitors. And I think the notion of bringing these folks together, it's about setting those guardrails of what's inbounds, what's outbounds, and what are some of those conversations, and making sure that your customers are comfortable at the bottom line.
Yeah, definitely. There's one more question here.
Yeah.
Where the company's challenge is gaining executive visibility, does the call from the CEO still make sense? Is there a better approach?
So that's a good question. I think
yeah.
You want to, Tatiana, you probably have a point of view. Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it also depends what level of CAB member you are inviting. So if you're trying to invite a board of other CEOs or CISOs, it's helpful to have the same level inviting them. But if maybe you're inviting VPs or SVPs, I think it's okay it doesn't have to be the CEO. So it could be an SVP or another executive, or sometimes on some CABs, we'll have an executive sponsor, which might be the CEO. And we sometimes will have a kind of co-executive sponsor. We might call them an executive lead. So that person might also be the person that could extend the invitation, or be the person who does that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I just to add 2 cents, Tatiana, onto that, it's also just about knowing that customer the best. I think, making sure that initial outreach comes from, and we've just seen better success if you do have those relationships. So, and that's why then things like the actual formal invitation letter, if the executive sponsor, which naturally could be the CEO, would be that level too. So it's just really it's about leveraging the rapport and relationships you have with your customers. And that could be tricky too. That might be a topic for a whole other webinar of when you don't have those relationships with that C-level or those folks that you want to, how do you get there? So topic for another webinar, Tatiana, we'll take a note there.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I think I can advance the slides. So this here, I like this a lot. Maybe I'm a visual person. I like this infographic, this advisory board overview. This is an internal tool that would be able to share the details, the overview of your board with your internal stakeholders. So this would, it would talk about who's the executive sponsor of the program. You'll see the number 15. So 15 of our most influential clients are part of this board. The strategic themes, what are some of those themes? Up in the upper right, it's funny if that's right here. So board directly influences the direction of strategy and, our long-term plans and solution roadmaps. Just a really good snapshot of what the board is about. And you can use this with your internal teams, say you need a little more visibility into your CAB, or you could have some naysayers. That happens sometimes, but really this is what the program is about. And I think it answers a lot of questions visually too, which I think is really nice. So let's dive into the onboard and engage. So once you've gone through the nomination process and the invitation, you've invited these customers to be part of your customer advisory board, what does that onboarding process looks like? So the welcome email would go out from, typically it's the CAB member and providing some of the details. The more details you know about the meeting, so if you have the date, absolutely. If you might not have the venue yet, but have the date, definitely dates matter. We all live by our calendar, so having that, those details in that welcome email. You also, really critical when we talked about that content development as part of the onboarding process, setting up a interview with these members to really dive into what their interest areas are. At Ignite, we like to present topics that we've heard from the stakeholders, or we know about that they are top of mind, and present the customers with a list of 5 to 6 and actually ask them to rank 1 through 3 what's most important. Those are really rich touch points with customers, and you'll get a lot of insights. So definitely don't skip over that part. I think that's really instrumental in helping with development of an agenda that's really member driven, really customer driven. So the next piece of the agenda, really talking about the board member ranking and that ongoing recruitment that is critical here. So using that ranking, and this is thinking about as it says ongoing, but what are some of those criteria that you're going to think about? Like, you want a healthy board, you want to take a look at, maybe we've had now 2 in-person meetings, a couple of virtual meetings. There might be some board members that, you know what, in terms of their engagement, maybe they're falling off a little bit, maybe, you know, who knows, they have other, they're just not as engaged as they were. So you want to consider, as we said, rolling nominations. You might need to replace a board member, or there might be, you know, when they come up against their tenure, it's been 2 years and you're looking to revitalize and add new members. So you want to really think about your membership. It's almost like portfolio management here. Of course, you can't do that for people, but so ranking these CAB members, we would recommend every 1 to 2 years, of course, based on the membership tenure. So taking a look at how long they're part of that. But you want to think of that, those board members, that engagement level. And there could be times where you might have to have a conversation with on the side offline to say, hey, it seems like maybe we're not hitting the mark with topics, and you can gauge. And they might say, you know what, my role has changed. I'm now really not even part of this process. So it might make sense. They might actually naturally opt out. This is an example. If you really, I think there's probably a lot of quantitative folks out there that might want to use a framework. So this is an example where you're ranking some of the engagement, are these strong customer advocates? Do they constantly raise their hand as we have working groups? Are they attending all of the meetings? Or, maybe they're only coming to 50%. So looking at some of the engagement metrics, you might also want to look at their contributions. And then some of the notes. I think the qualitative notes are often very important. Say this gentleman here, this fictitious member, Charles Roberts, great perspective on future industry. So he's actually a really strong contributor to the CAB. This is a customer you want to have there. But again, a way to just really constantly think about the mix and the engagement and some of the contributions that your board members are making. As I mentioned, sometimes, a retirement letter is necessary, and I think it's really critical. We would encourage that comes from the executive sponsor, really thanking them for their valuable insights, that they've been instrumental in helping us steer the direction of our company. Typically don't recommend that's not a salesperson, but it comes from that executive sponsor or the senior most person to give that, to share that letter. These are just a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. Recruitment never ends, and continually looking for new members to join. What's not on here is, maybe I'm opening a can of worms, Tatiana, but sort of like when you get a member that says, hey, I can't make it, can I send that person? If in most of our charters at Ignite include members are not able to delegate, you can't just pass your membership to someone. I ran into that quite a bit. At my days at Forrester, where we'd have a meeting, they'd say, hey, I can't join, but I'm going to send And if you weren't careful, it was hard to sort of regulate, but oftentimes they would send a direct report or someone not at that right altitude, and it really would detract from the conversation. So in a cab with just 12 members, they're not allowed to delegate. So that would have to be prior consent with you, the company. Maintaining the
Kelly, that is just making a comment. That is
Yeah.
spot on and absolutely relevant. And someone wrote, I just had this issue. How would you address it?
Oh, I know. I knew I was gonna. It's okay. I can see who asked that question. It's definitely, it happens a lot. I think the best way is bringing in the stakeholder who knows that person the most and having that conversation. So again, in my experience, where we would get that anytime we would have a conversation with the customer. And it's funny, they almost, and maybe it's a little bit of an adjacent story here, but a lot of times people will opt out once you have that conversation and you show the agenda. I mean, I'd have people that would think they were going to come to the meeting, but once you explain the agenda and said, hey, this is a really interactive session where we're going to be calling on you to answer questions about, your point of view. And if they're not the right person, they self-select out. They'll say, oh, I thought it was, I thought it was a trip to the Biltmore in Miami. It's like, no, this is a really, so it's whoever asked the question, and I'm sure others have it. It's a tricky situation, but I think open communication and making sure that you're also bringing in that internal stakeholder who has that relationship. And if you have best practice to share back, that's always open ears here. I think that's really does come up quite a bit. See if I can get to the next slide here. So this is just a nice infographic here as you're just thinking about recruitment. It should always be on the top of your mind, thinking about some of the attributes of these customers, thinking about the business potential. That's a big reason of why you're doing a CAB meeting. You're trying to help inform your strategy. You want to get actionable insights that are going to help you drive innovation and drive business strategy. But these are some of the things, industry participation, professional. I think a lot of it does come down to the actual person. You want to have thought leaders, you want to have people that want to be there in a very basic level, that are going to be engaged and contribute to the conversation. So this slide here, and as I said, the engage part of the process is what we're going to be chatting about on our next webinar. But how do you keep members engaged year round? I think, what is the statistic? Everybody has adults have an attention span of 8 seconds, which is pretty crazy. But think about things like planning for quarterly engagement activities. So you might be doing quarterly calls, company updates, having a guest speaker. I think a lot of working group calls might come out of your CAB meeting where it's, okay, we just skimmed the surface on this. We're going to meet in a couple weeks to just dive deeper into this topic. So I think working groups is a great way to keep that engagement going. So creating customer-driven agendas on discussion topics. Ignite really we feel strongly about the 80-20 rule. So your customers need to be doing 80% of the talking, and you as the host company, it's 20%. So you want to make sure that you're designing these meetings that are engaging. There's that value. So if you're, and sometimes it's hard to put that customer hat on and say, oh, we just want to talk about all our new features and talk about this and our new strategies. It's how is that valuable? Always do that value check and say, is this something that's going to give value to these members? I mean, they're making time in their schedule, traveling in most cases to come join you. So understand that value and make sure that it's clear. And then from the host company side, you want to deliver those actionable insights. So making sure that you're capturing those at the meetings with some of the tools. I think we do a great job of using tools like a key takeaway form. So you ask all your key stakeholders to write down what are some of the things that from each session that were insightful and where can we action on them? This could be a great webinar for our product marketing team, or this is really valuable input that needs to go to the customer success team or the sales leader. I was in a CAB meeting recently and one of the members said, I've never spoken to my sales rep. So, I mean, you'll get some insights, but really important to capture those. And then as we talked a little bit about leverage CAB members for customer advocacy, these are folks that are customer champions. They could be potential for speaking engagements, press opportunities, testimonials, success stories. And I think a lot of folks on the call probably are in a customer marketing, customer advocacy role. So this is probably your bread and butter, spending a lot of time here. I think it's also about knowing, understanding your customers and their comfort level with these. You might have someone that I'm absolutely happy to be on the main stage at your user forum, but I'm not comfortable, or others might say I'm only comfortable talking one-to-one with an industry analyst, for example. So just understanding those levels of customer advocacy. But that will be the topic, Tatiana, for the next webinar.
Yeah, so we have a question that came in.
Okay.
Do you see a place for multiple CABs that are focused on different areas of the business? For example, an executive CAB, which is what I think you specifically mean, or a CAB of users to discuss more user-focused topics rather than strategic, or interest/industry-specific CAB?
Yeah, so I think at the highest level there are the strategic advisory boards. So those typically tend to be your executive level. There are product advisory boards that would be more of your users and more of the actual. So that might be more like a director level or manager, folks that are actually using the products more heavily. I think in interest specific, I think that could be woven into the executive strategy, executive board or the product board. They do come in all flavors. I think it's really about thinking through what your objectives, and part of the process we do here at Ignite is talking with the stakeholders, like what do you want to get out of your board? And the other flavor too is a partner board. So some folks are running advisory boards with their partners. So it's really understanding your objectives. If bringing those, maybe you start with a product board first because you're rolling out iterations on your product and solutions, and that's a critical objective. Or perhaps you're thinking about going into new markets and changing your business strategy, and you need that executive level. So it does come down to what those objectives are. I would advise you don't want to have too many. I mean, I've been on conversations where they're like, we want one in this group, one in this area. And if you have unlimited resources, maybe you can pull that off and you have a team that can do that, but it's a lot of work. And I think it's about focusing and starting too, maybe you start with back to the region, start with the North American board, get some success, and then maybe you roll it out to different areas, and maybe you do one in EMEA or somewhere else, but have some success, put some points on the board, and then expand. I think it's compelling to want to tackle and have all of these, but I think if you really look at your objectives, look at your ideal member profile as the people who are going to be there, and use some of these tools we talked about today. I think the resources
awesome.
Be a good one here. I hope I answered some of the questions, because you're asking very good questions, everyone.
No, that was really awesome. And they said this is the person anonymous. This is so awesome. Thank you so much. We will be sharing the recording in the deck. And then I'll also share, we recently had the CAP conference, and I'll send the recordings because we have Adobe and some other companies there that will, and you can see how they manage their programs and divide, have multiple CABs and global CABs and all of that. So thank you, everyone. We're at the end of our webinar here. So you can schedule a free CAB evaluation with an Ignite CAB expert. We'll share an advisory board plan with you. We'll discuss your advisory board needs and make recommendations for your program. So go ahead and go to igniteag.com/contact to get in touch with us. And our next workshop is next month. So after, you'll check your emails for the recording to the webinar and for the details for the next CAB workshop all about how to create highly engaging CAB meeting agendas. Someone wrote, "This was great. Thank you. Planning an in-person CAB for September 2023. Very timely." Awesome. So I'm so glad that this was helpful. And thank you, everyone. Any final words, Kelly?
No, I just thank you. Thanks for the questions. And many of you are running boards coming up. So good luck. And tis the season, right? We're in spring customer advisory board season, but definitely thank you for letting me share some of the recruitment ideas. So thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Bye, everyone.